been? Where have I disappeared to? And those are all very valid questions. For the most part, I haven't disappeared from the content creation space. I've always been here. I just kind of shifted from the podcast to my personal brand, which is the Being Mimi Instagram page. I kind of wanted to step back from the podcast because at the time, life was lifing. And it caused me to just take a pause. And so I remember taking like a 3-month pause from like all of my social media accounts. It was my Being Mimi page. It was my Shot of Melanin page. And I just needed some time. I needed some time to breathe, to heal, and maybe just kind of be okay again because I just wasn't okay. So I was grieving the loss of a relationship, and I just kind of needed some time to, go through the emotions of that. And so once the 3 months had passed, I decided to kind of just pick back up with the Being Mimi. Now, what was nice about it is that it's only me on that page. And you kind of could go at your own pace with no like obligation to post. But the main reason why I was continuing to post was because I did want to increase my followers, get my name out there, connect with other content creator, just something to also do, because yes, while you could be easily caught off in grief, sometimes you just need an outlet, a distraction. I don't even know if distraction is the best word to use, but you need a way to just kind of focus on something else. And so my focus at that point became my Being Mimi page. So I never kind of went away from social media. I was still very much around. You got friends who are, rooting you on and, supporting you and encouraging you as you're going through such a difficult transition. But, ultimately this is your journey and you kind of have to go at the pace that makes sense to you. So, you get to hanging around with some of them and you hear their stories and the success that they're having and the projects that they're working on. And, although it's nice and I've always encouraged my friends, I just wasn't in that mindset. Like I didn't have any mindset that I wanted to podcast. And I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. At one point, I even questioned whether I should even do this, whether I should either do the podcast on one end or be a content creator on the other end. I just kind of felt, I don't know, depleted. What's the point? But, I think by showing up and continuing to post, it kind of did help me get into the groove of it. Once I started to see some results, I think that's when I was like, okay, I can do this. Because one thing for sure is, when you start off on this journey, you meet such incredible people, people who are really doing it big, and slowly but surely you end up, imposter syndrome kind of kicks in and you start to wonder, like, am I supposed to be here? Should I be here? Thankfully, with being in spaces like that, it allowed me to just keep going and just, continue to focus on your content and growing. So mainly the Being Mimi page was what I was focusing on. And I decided to kind of step away from the podcast. It has been almost, at the time of recording this episode, it is almost a year post breakup. I just remember, my friends were like, hey, when are you going to get back into podcasting? Really enjoyed a Shot of Melanin. When are you getting back into it? From friends to random people asking me when I'm getting back into it. And I at that point, I didn't really give it much thought, really, truly. I was kind of more focused on being Mimi and trying to connect with other content creators, hopefully increase my numbers so I could get partnerships and brand deals and all that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? But at one point, I did feel like a tug to go back as a podcaster. But a part of me didn't feel as though my heart was in A Shot of Melanin. I think it was great highlighting Canadian content creators or therapists or entrepreneurs. I thought that was amazing because the city has so many, they have a lot of people who are either talented or who are very smart. And I just kind of felt like this is something I wanted to kind of bring to the forefront. Also get other names out there that maybe a lot of people don't know. As a podcaster, a good portion of your listeners are going to be in the States. So I kind of figured this would be a great way to educate those in the States. Also, you get those from the UK. And so that was the whole premise of it. Also to have Black conversations, from politics here in Canada through a Black perspective, or dating in the Black and brown community. It was just kind of a safe space for us by us. Let's just put it that way. And then for those who were interested, who were not from the culture, who were interested in learning and wanted to learn something, then by all means. And so that was the whole premise of A Shot of Melanin. And then at the early part of this year, one of my friends reached out to me and asked me if I'm coming back into podcasting. And it did cross my mind. It definitely did cross my mind about podcasting. But A Shot of Melanin didn't align for me anymore. I'm not too sure if it's because I'm going through a season of healing. I'm not also sure if it's because I went through a season of grieving. So I just kind of didn't know if it was something I wanted to do anymore. And, eventually I started hearing, a couple of my friends starting their seasons and how excited I was for them. And I just remember very distinctly, I felt a shift in me in which I said, yeah, I don't think, not to say that A Shot of Melanin will not be revived. It could be revived. But for the season that I'm in, I just kind of felt like I needed something different. And so that's what birthed this podcast, Life Unfiltered and Unscripted. And so really and truly what this podcast is about, sharing stories about life when life is lifing and how you get through it and what you do when life comes at you hard and fast. How do you deal with the transitions? What does healing look like? Right now in my season, healing is looking like trusting myself again, being able to make my own decisions, and just, slowing down and smelling the roses. And so right now I can say this season will probably be more like a journal of life for me. I am now embracing a new chapter of my life. I'm now officially a single mother. And what does that look like? What is that journey going to look like? Now, let me be absolutely clear. This podcast, at least I can't speak on future seasons. I don't know what the topic of conversation will be for future seasons, but as of this season, it's literally just going to be my journey moving forward. So if anybody's coming on here to sip tea and that is not this podcast. I'm not here to throw shade. This is not about coming for people. This is generally just a podcast of just journeying through life. Right now, and like I said, in the season I'm in, it's about motherhood alone, and the road that I'm going to be going on. So yeah, if you're looking for any drama, any sip tea, trying to figure out about my life, I promise you're not going to get it. And this is not a podcast where I'm throwing shade at anybody particular or anyone specifically. Like I said, it's primarily just for me moving forward. What does that road look like? And who knows what this journey is going to look like? You're going to see me on the couch quite a bit. And, I also have some tea. I'm actually quite excited to see what this season's going to look like and also what future episodes are going to look like. Because I don't know. I'm kind of, okay, now that I know, I have an idea, but it's going to just kind of be by the whim. And, I do have plans in the future for, like I said, this season I'm going to have guests on the show. But I think right now, in terms of season 1, I think it's just going to be me here having a conversation, and then kind of seeing how it goes. But I don't know where this is going to bring us, what's going to come out of it. I'm hoping that I'm able to connect with people who are going through the same journey as me, or if I have different topics on here that they connect. The goal of it is to show people that, when you're going through a rough time, that you're not the only one, that there are people out there that are going through it too, and that it will get easier. I'm grateful for my community, whether that is those in the content creation world. And I have to pick up a lot of y'all because a lot of y'all have called and checked in on me and really just wanted to know how I was genuinely doing. You've come over to my place. You sat with me. You've taken me out for dinner or whatever. Even as simple as a DM. I'm praying for you. I'm thinking of you. How are you doing? It does not go unnoticed. I see you and I thank you so much, because when I was in my darkest time, y'all were the light. To even my close friends who've been through the trenches with me, who know what I'm going through, who know like the ups and downs of motherhood, and all of the in between. I just have to say like a super thank you, because it was a season. It was a season. Not to say that the season's done. Like once you become a single mother, I just feel like the season just continues. It's just, there are highs and there are lows, and you just kind of have to learn how to go through it. So how do I feel about being a single mom? I don't know. I mean, if you had told me years ago that would be my life, I would have like, I think you're crazy. I think a lot of us get into relationships and we think it's going to last forever. I grew up with all of my family members married. So aunts, uncles were married. My parents are married. So I kind of grew up on that. And in my mindset, I kind of thought that would be the story of my life. I thought I would be, I'd find my person, would get married, and, the whole Disney fairy tale, and they live happily forever after the end. But that wasn't the case. Ultimately, I had to make a decision for myself. I had to, choose myself, because at the end of the day, you have to choose you. I remember somebody either said it or I heard it in a video, but somebody said, we come into this world alone and we will leave this world alone. So you better choose you, because when you die, the person who gave you all that knowledge, insight, who helped direct you, they're not coming with you. It's you alone. And so that's what that's been like for me, is, trusting myself, making decisions for myself. Also, what does that look like in terms of making decisions by myself for the kids? For the most part, of course, there's co-parenting. So there's big things that, you'd have to get the approval from the other parent. But smaller things that, you would make on yourself. Last Christmas, I had the kids, but this Christmas I will be alone. And so I'm not going to lie, I'm a little anxious. Am I scared about this journey? I think a part of me at one point was scared to do this alone, especially because I live in Toronto, and Toronto is a very expensive city. I was petrified, not going to lie. I was scared that I was going to end up homeless and then I'm going to end up on the streets. I know. I'm a spiral thinker and it may never, ever come to that point. But, those fears are legitimate. Being that there is a homeless issue here in the city. I remember when we moved initially, it wasn't bad, but now it's just boomed in terms of numbers of homelessness. So, my fears are definitely valid. I just pray to God that that never happens, that I never get to that point. But I think for the most part, I'm adjusting to being a single mom. I think what's nice is that I have more freedom. Before it was just primarily me and the kids. And now, there's a time where they go off with their dad and it's just me. And so it's kind of like, what do you do when they're not around? Especially because you're so used to having them around. And so this is where, you find yourself hobbies. You find yourself things to do. So, for example, one of the things that I like to do is I like to hang out with my friends. I've recently gotten into solo dates. I think solo dates are nice. For me, being that I'm not born and raised from Toronto, it's a great way to kind of explore the city, try out new restaurants, coffee shops, whatever. So solo dates are nice. And, hobbies, I've gotten back into reading. So it's kind of like, it's nice. I get more time to myself. I've been hitting the gym. My goal is to lose weight, and that has been my focus too. So, you kind of learn to adapt to the new normal. And so the aim of this podcast is when life comes at you hard and fast, what do you do? How do you handle it? And how do you thrive from it? So what can you expect from this season? We're going to be covering things like healing. What does healing look like? What has my healing journey look like? I'm very much into my faith, and I do know I want to have an episode devoted to that. About like going through life and then having your faith and that sort of stuff. Of course, mainly motherhood, friendships, rebuilding your identity, learning to love yourself, all of that. So I feel like that's the real premise of season 1, and just, connecting with a lot more single mothers, and hopefully in future episodes, having them come and tell their stories, how they came to the realization that, they chose themselves and how empowering that is. Like I have a couple in future, not now, but I have a couple of individuals that I have in mind that I would love to get on the podcast. There's a content creator by the name of Amber. She's Canadian and she does travel between Canada and the US, I believe, because her mom is in the US. I would love to have her on and sit down and have a conversation about, becoming a single mother, that journey for her, and, going from there to now being a very successful content creator in Canada, US, because she's in between both of them. And there's so many other names that I want to kind of, get to sit down and tell their stories. I'm going through this journey. It's kind of like, it's nice to hear from other people. 1, to know that I'm not alone. 2, to kind of better give me an idea of what I will be facing with moving forward, and hopefully provide me with some tools, some resources, as well as some words of wisdom as I'm going through this journey. I'm ultimately now, as I'm recording this episode, we are now 8 months out of it. And I could generally say I'm in a much better place. I think anybody who goes through a breakup grieves. We all grieve when somebody leaves this earth, and we also grieve friendships, especially if you had really close friendships that you have known for years, and all of a sudden you're no longer friends anymore. And you will grieve relationships, whether that's a business relationship, a romantic relationship. We're all going to grieve it because, you put a lot of care and time and love into something, and to know that it's not going to work, you're going to grieve that. You're going to grieve the what you had envisioned for yourself, your future, your kids, if you have kids, or your business for your, so definitely was a rough patch. But I think, with therapy and having a great community, I think that, it does get a little bit easier. I'm not here to say that it you'll heal quickly, but the road to healing, eventually you go from stumbling to limping to gradually walking to maybe even running. So yeah, that's the whole point of at least season 1, Life Unfiltered and Unscripted. And so this portion of it will be more so about motherhood. I do have some ideas to tackle other topics that are not necessarily around motherhood. It's just life. When life be lifing and it comes at you and you have to maneuver, you have to change. And so that's pretty much what that topic, or the topics that I plan to have in future season. But right now it's going to be a lot of my journey as a single mother, and, connecting with other mothers. And I'm hoping that it connects with other single moms too. I'm hoping that, I could create a community where people feel vulnerable and, they're open to tell their stories, because ultimately when we tell our stories, we inspire others and we help people go through it. Because for some of us who are already on the other side, it really helps those who are going through it know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. So in terms of posting, I will be posting twice a month. And every topic is going to be different. It's going to cover a range of different topics, but mainly around the main topic of becoming a single mother. I think that's definitely an episode I need to have, is changing the narrative. Because let me tell you, for the longest while, I had a hard time calling myself a single mother, because it was just so hard. But we will definitely have that conversation in future episodes. And so I just kind of want to, first of all, say thank you to all of those who supported A Shot of Melanin. I'm sad that, we'll have to pause that for now, but continue to follow me, continue to, if you want to support, definitely hop onto this train. I promise you it's still going to be just as great as A Shot of Melanin. And for those of you who decide to hop off, that is okay. I do appreciate your support. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode.